Morning and welcome to my Tireside chat. It is February 6th, 2026. I'm on my way to work. It's Friday. I'm leaving work later today, a little early, to go to the coast for the weekend with the wife, which is nice. What have I been doing this week? I'm actually making a crypto video here. What have I been doing? I've been working on taxes. It's that time of the year. Actually, started working on them back in December-ish. Started preparing because every year, getting everything in order to hand to my CPA, it can be a lot of work. Unless all you're doing as far as crypto goes is just occasionally buying, selling, trading on Coinbase, just like one platform, and you don't have any other wallets, you don't trade on any other exchanges. If you're doing that, then you run a report on Coinbase and you put that in TurboTax or whatever, give it to your CPA, and you're done. If you're like me and you've been doing this for like 5 years, which is crazy to say out loud and think about, and you've got a long history of dozens of wallets with all different types of chains and trading on a dozen or more exchanges and mining rewards, node rewards that you have to account for, and all sorts of other things. It gets pretty complicated, unless you have all of that knowledge and you know what you're doing and you're trying to account for that. Like when the time you very first start doing all of that, some of that stuff you don't really learn until you go through it a bit. So anywho, so I've been doing a lot of that this week. And every year that I do this, it forces you to reflect on the previous year, obviously. So that's what you're doing, is looking at all the numbers and really crunching everything to see what your profits and losses were. And then that compared to the previous year or previous 5 years, or however many years. So that if you have to go back and look at all of that, which I do inadvertently, because I just, obviously do everything on my computer, and I've got folders with, tax year 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, so on. And with each one, it has my reports and then snapshots of my portfolio on December 31st of each year. And just seeing where you're at. 2025 compared to 2024, man, what a year, huh? Ha! Ha ha! What a year. Yeah. I will say, I'm just anticipating the conversation that I have with my CPA once I submit everything to him. He looks at my balance sheet and my P&L, and at least it's going to show you the capital gains that I had in 2024. Well, that was counteracted in 2025. So, if nothing else, everything that I'm hoping everything that I paid to the IRS and last year will basically. I'm not quite sure how that works yet, but we'll see. But I'm hoping to get an equivalent refund or thereabouts. So that's one silver lining. Speaking of silver, man, how about silver? So, okay, am I done talking about the previous subject? I will just say, I'm just going to say, all the crypto chat rooms that I was in, some of the subscriptions that I was paying for some of the influencers that I had been in a year or more, which some of them are still, maybe, good. They've got their wisdom and trading expertise and stuff like that. And, some value to that still. But I'm not paying for those anymore, and I haven't in a while. I'm not. There's a couple people that I follow on Patreon that are really inexpensive, that are like general finance. They're good, but yeah, the groups that I was in through like 2023, 24, some of 25, and I almost considered just rejoining so I could go into their Discord chats and just say, I told you so. But so I'm just going to say it here. All the people, when Trump got elected, that were just, I mean, like I've said, it seems like 90% or more of the people in those chat rooms were huge Trump supporters. Because like most of the crypto industry were huge Trump supporters. Because they thought, oh, he's going to come in and he's going to be super bullish at the end of 2024. Oh, the market's going to just take off from here and it's going to be great. And you know what? I was, at the time, cautiously optimistic that was going to happen, and we were going to go from where we were, which was like the peak of pricing, well, when it came to like the altcoin market in December of 24. That's when my portfolio was at its highest, and all the people in these, the altcoin groups that I was in, well, it's going to go up like 10x from here. If you only do 4x, then you're doing something wrong. And that's like kind of what everyone expected, which is, damn, usually that's a good sign to get out, you know? But I should have known. It's just there was a voice in the back of my head saying, this Trump guy's going to screw everything up. You know it? I mean, I knew he was going to screw up the economy in general, and we're still pumping up that bubble, not really seeing the full fallout of it. I think inflation is higher than they're saying it is, and it's probably only going to get worse with all the damage the tariffs are doing to the global economy, and all of our trading partners quietly backing away from us. But all the people that were like, oh yeah, Trump, don't you dare say anything bad about Trump. He's going to do great things. He's going to make us all millionaires. He wants us to be rich too because he cares about you. I'm like, no, he doesn't. I don't think he does. And then, yeah, sure enough, like January 20th or 19th was when he, in 25, was when he came out with the Trump meme coin that he made millions on, and his family made millions on, tens, hundreds of millions, I don't know, on, when it went from like $1 to $75 in a few days, and everybody bought into it, and then it crashed back to like $15, and, and people saw that. I mean, talk about, like, if that had been any other president in the past, talk about a conflict of interest and profiting from the White House in so many terms. We were complaining about, irregard respectively. So people saw that, the general public saw that, I think, at that point, and are like, oh, this crypto thing, obviously this is a scam. If the president's doing that, it's a scam. And then who was it? The president of, was it Bolivia? Damn, I don't remember now. Who launched his own meme coin and tried to copy what Trump did. And it was like, oh, okay, well, this just proves if the leader of a country can launch their own meme coin and scam people out of millions of dollars, oh yeah, crypto's just a scam. And I think that kind of cements it. And once again, it's like every year or two, there's a big incident in the news like this, and then from then on out, it was like everything kind of tanked. And then it was like 50%, and then by April, May, it kind of came up a little bit. And then there was like, sell in May and walk away. No, this year's going to be different because we have institutional investments now, ETFs. So, it's probably going to pump over the summer, and that was not the case. Should have sold in May and walked away. And over the course of the year, things just kind of gradually declined. Yeah, by the end of the year, portfolio was in bad shape. So did I round trip my bags over the past few years? Yeah, pretty much. I took some profits. Not enough, but I took some profits. I got some tax benefits. I had some fun doing all the mining stuff. I sold off equipment at fairly good times to sell off equipment. It wasn't a total loss. Was it worth all the effort I put into it? I don't know. Am I totally done with crypto? No, I'm not. And after this past week, my portfolio bled until the end of the year, and then I cashed out most of it, and I still had a little bit. And then this past week, I cashed out more, just to keep the bleeding from continuing as much as possible. And now with Bitcoin, it dipped down to almost like 61,000 yesterday or the day before. So it's down 50% from where it was a couple months ago. So if this is, and this past week, okay, let's talk about that. What are the things that have affected? Obviously there's all these macro things that have affected the price of Bitcoin. Now, also another note that I skipped over before. Now, if you were just in Bitcoin and ETH and maybe Solana last year, you did pretty well, actually. If you were just mainly holding and selling at close to the right times, you might have done pretty well. Some people did, and then if you were following people or you timed it fairly well, you might have made some profits, because overall Bitcoin did pretty well last year. But if you were in any altcoins outside of that, unless you were just in something that happened to launch and you were just timing things really well and you got out at the right times, which is rare, Anyways, so last week, all the macroeconomic factors coming into play. I feel like a big one was Trump's Federal Reserve announcement. His pick to lead the Federal Reserve, and that's coming up in May. Who will be replacing Jerome Powell? Kevin Washing Machine. That's like the Southern accent, but that's also kind of a Bay Area accent thing. And my kids, I think they both will say that from time to time. They have in the past, and I've stopped them. Like, wash? You're gonna wash your clothes? Anyways, this is his last name. Like, you get that from your grandma on your mom's side. She says that, wash. And her family's from San Mateo. Interesting tidbit. Anyhow, so Kevin Warsh was an unexpected pick for Fed chair, I guess, and I think that is partially responsible for tanking the markets, because he says it seems like he may be okay with lowering interest rates, but he wants to end quantitative easing and just let the economy implode, and then swoop in with quantitative easing, which is what he did when he was on the Fed in 2008, or he was part of that. He wasn't the Fed chair, he was on the Fed. And the markets don't like that, because we were expecting, a full year or more of quantitative easing, of money printing, and lower interest rates, and we're expecting whoever Trump's guy was to come in and slash interest rates heavily by like 2 full points, or 2%. Once Jerome Powell left, and so it's partially that, and it's partially everything that happened at Davos, the week before, and the poor economic outlook around that, and everything that's going on. I mean, there's so much stuff that this administration has really just done a bang up job of. When it comes to the economy. And and we saw gold and silver, which if any of you were invested in that, any two of you, which saw record-breaking gains this last year, and then both of them dumped. Silver dumped like 40%. See, I think it's down in the 70s now, where it was up to almost 120 at its peak just a week or two ago, a couple weeks ago. And gold was at 5,500. I think it was, I'm going to check again this morning. It's like 4,000 something. But I still think, gold and silver are a hedge against fiat currency. And I do think, I was watching one guy saying that, this 50-year experiment in fiat has proven to be a failure. And it was probably going to be a failure, maybe, everything hinging on the dollar. And maybe if it weren't for Trump, it might have taken another 5 years for us to get to this point, but he's just like rushed it along. But I guess, some of that's yet to be seen. We'll see how inflation goes with everything this year. I'm still waiting for the Supreme Court to see if they will rule on the legality of the tariffs that he's implemented since he's come into office. That was originally possibly going to happen in December. I haven't seen the latest on when they're supposed to be ruling on that. But if you hadn't heard, the Supreme Court is supposed to be ruling on the legality of the Trump's tariffs. And the arguments that have been heard in the Supreme Court so far don't bode well for the executive branch and the president. By all rights, there's no reason why the Supreme Court should be siding with him and the legality of these tariffs. The way that he's used them and the excuses that he's used to implement them, they're really not valid. Saying that all of this is due to a fentanyl crisis, when you look at it for more than 5 seconds, it's obvious that he's just using this as a weapon to punish other countries and further his economic strategy, which is full of holes, and a lot of his supporters really completely misunderstand. They still don't understand how tariffs work. Or maybe they do and they think it's worthwhile, but they're wrong. They're wrong. And it's just, this is where we're at. So if the Supreme Court rules against it, that means that they're going to get reversed. All of those tariffs are going to get canceled. And the money earned by the taxes that were paid by the importers and people in the U.S. ultimately has to be refunded, which is something in the $200 billion range, and it's going to be a huge bureaucratic nightmare, but it should happen. It should probably happen, however they wind up doing it. And then, of course, Trump and his team have a plan B. There's still other ways he can implement tariffs against people. He just has to be more specific about it. It's under a different 1970s law. But yes, you can still continue to say, oh, such and such tariffs on, 50% tariffs on steel from this country or whatever. But you can't just say, 200% tariffs on China. I'm implementing it in 2 weeks. You won't be able to do that anymore on a whole country. All right, well, So what am I doing from here? I don't know. I'm focusing on finishing. I'm going to turn in my taxes, my reports this week, hopefully, or the next few days to my CPA and have a conversation with him. As far as investments go this year, I mean, who knows? Like I said, Trump could come out next week and say, just kidding, I'm not using Kevin Warsh. I'm going to pick, who's the other Kevin that everyone was expecting him to pick. That was going to be way more bullish, and then like the markets will turn around, or more likely Kevin Warsh is going to get into his position once he gets nominated, assuming he goes through all the Senate confirmations and everything, and he's not going to do what he's saying he's going to do. He's still going to continue printing money and pumping it into the economy, and at that point the markets will realize, oh, actually everything's fine, and it'll just come back, because that's what we're really waiting on. That's what we've been waiting on really for a year and a half, is quantitative easing to kick in. And Jerome Powell has been gradually backing away from QT, and then stopped, and there's been slowly, somewhat responsibly, I guess, as far as the Federal Reserve can be for what it is that they claim to be trying to do for the economy. I do. A lot of people really hate Jerome Powell. I'm a little neutral on. I mean, it's for what it is. Yes, we have a Federal Reserve. Yes, our financial system is screwed up and stupid, but could it be worse? And Jerome Powell, and let's all remember that Trump was the one who put him there in the first place, and now that he's threatening him and everything because he's not doing what he wants to do. But and Trump has said, oh, Jerome Powell's an idiot. He should have never been nominated in the first place. And I was like, well, you nominated him. All right, I'm done now. I'm gonna go inside and go to work. Happy tax season, everyone. Talk to you later.